Okay, David Torres, what say ye? What say ye?
So the big infrastructure plan has been passed, believe it or not. The BIF is passed. The House passed it, the Senate has passed it, and by now, most likely by the time you're seeing this, the president has signed off on it. Despite the Build Back Better not being passed alongside it, it looks like a procedural rule was voted upon. It looks like they could get the Build Back Better plan passed by the 15th of November. Whether that gets done or not remains to be seen. But for now, we do have to take this win. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, you have to be happy with this bill getting passed and some things getting done.
I'm happy with infrastructure, but let's move on to the next thing. Let's get some family medical leave, okay, David Torres? So that's one of the candidates in the Democratic primary for Congressional 5th U.S. Congress, U.S. Congressman for the House Representative race, 5th Congressional District in Colorado, David Torres versus Michael C. Colombe. It looks like Colombe. I'm going to say Colombe the whole time because name recognition is one of the main reasons that people vote for either one of the candidates, David Torres, Michael C. Colombe. I think it's just Colombo, Colorado, Colombo. I don't know. But two Democrats, they're going to face off against each other. 9 days left. You got 5 Republicans who's running against each other. They'll have to face one of them in November. So there you go. There you go. That's David Torres. We have more. Let's watch some David Torres clips a little bit more. And this is all about Michael C. Colombe. Michael C. Colombe, he's a rescue swimmer in the 90s. He was part of Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield. He went through the Suez Canal on an Eisenhower battleship. Apparently, some major officer was pulled out of the tank. I'm not sure what happened there. There was something about a court martial. You had a fire marshal, the El Paso County. They got $1 million in grants. And $1 million grant to fire prevention, fire something. And they're just, the fire marshal, Lacey something maybe. I thought it was a guy though. He said they're playing around with it. So he's like, spend the damn money. You got $1 million. Spend the grant for that money. They're trying to say they're going to use the grant, put it on Wall Street, so that way they'll make some money off the dividends and then use the dividends in order for fire prevention. Only you could prevent forest fire. Bring back Smokey the Bear. $50 million isn't that? I mean, $1 million. It's bring back Smokey the Bear. Only you can prevent forest fires. Only you can. He's 53 years old. Michael Colombe. His mother had died of cervical cancer. Michael Colombe. He knows 31 disciplines. Michael Colombe has went on 52 combat missions. Michael Colombe has went on over 300 parachute jumps and 300 scuba dives. 300 scuba dives. All right, let's listen to David Torres. Questions from future. Happy Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day. I bet he was excited when he got this introduction. I would have been. I'm like, hell yeah, look at this intro.
We spend a lot of time arguing with each other, especially this day and age, especially in the political format. That we don't get a lot of days per year that we put things aside and begin to put into perspective the things that actually matter. On this Veterans Day, this is one of those days that we have to put everything aside. Our veterans mean the world to me. Having a small experience in the United States Air Force Reserves put into perspective some of the bigger sacrifices.
So there's David Torres. David Torres loves the veterans. Okay, so David Torres loves the veterans. Michael Colombe, he says he's a Democrat. Michael Colombe is a competitor, so this isn't about him. This is about Michael Colombe. That's David Torres. David Torres. David Torres. Michael Colombe said he's a Democrat because he's a progressive. He's got to be. I mean, he's a liberal, He's got left-leaning views. So that's why he's a Democrat, right? That makes logical sense. If you got left-leaning liberal views, you should be a Democrat. For conservatives to be on the right, they're Republicans. Liberals on the left are Democrats, and that how it's supposed to work. Anyways, working class families don't stand a chance with the two corporate imperialist oligarchical plutocratic. Okay, so he's a Democrat because he cares about the environment. He's a Democrat. Michael Colombe is a Democrat because he cares about the environment. He cares about women's health rights. He cares about universal health care. He wants to reform public education. He cares about the people. He cares about people over politics. People over politics. People over politicizing issues. People over production. It's about people. It always comes back to people. Where there's people, there's power. Michael Colombe said he's a Democrat because he's in favor of labor and he's in favor of unions. He's a cerebral. He's a thinker. Now, Michael Colombe seems to live in his mind. Now, Jill Stein had said you can't be a revolutionary in an anti-revolutionary party. Is that true? I also wonder about their conservatives, right? Joe Biden said that nothing is going to fundamentally change. He doesn't have a bold progressive agenda. He's a right-wing conservative. That's why the Clintons and Joe Biden, that's why the Republicans can't. Barack Obama ran the country like Ronald Reagan. That's why these Republicans don't know what to fucking do. Because Democrats are becoming Republicans and then Republicans are just becoming batshit insane. So we'll find out if the Democratic Party is where good progressive ideas go to die, because it looks like we got two progressives. It looks like both David Torres and Michael C. Colombe are both progressives. Michael Colombe, he's knocked on over 100 doors. He went to the Juneteenth festival. He says black people are his people. And you know what? Michael Colombe, I feel you on that. Black people are my people too. I love black people. I'm Mr. Black People. Now, both David Torres and Michael C. Colombe, they both seem like great men. Good, great men. Both of them. They both seem smart, educated. They both seem like they would do the job. They're both way better than Lauren Boebert could ever hope to be. In fact, Michael Colombe had said of David Torres, he said David Torres is a good man. He's a good man, good father, good community leader. He's for social justice. He's a good person for the world. But the one thing that Michael Colombe feels like he's got over David Torres is he's got this incredible, intense federal experience. He was a part of the Navy, part of the Air Force, 2 branches of military. He's been part of the BLM, Bureau of Land Management. He's been doing these emergency rescue operations, cleaning up mines, cleaning up drilling wells, just a whole bunch. He's 53 years old, and he's had a shit ton of incredible things that he's done in his life. Let's keep on. David Torres. I like that David Torres has a YouTube channel. It's David Torres for Congress. CO-C 403-C3A nonprofit. I was having okay, so it's only a couple videos here. Divided versus Together. This is from 7 months ago.
Buyer beware. Hey everyone, David Torres, your 5th Congressional District candidate for the 2022 election here in Colorado. It's been a crazy week. We had elections on Tuesday, and locally, we have a lot of mixed feelings about the election results. Nationally, everyone's talking about New Jersey, everyone's talking about Virginia, and it's exciting to see the engagement that we're getting from our community and communities across the country. So let's keep that up. While there's a lot of things to fix, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep moving forward. We've got another election coming up next November. Guys, I'm here to unite. That is my message. I want you to check out my podcast this week that I will dive in a little bit more about this week's election and some of the BS that happened and some of the great things that happened. I'm really excited about some of the candidates that ran for school board. People are getting more and more involved with our children, and that's great. Buyer beware, though. Guys, there's still a ton of misinformation out there, and it's coming from the top, and it's seeping all the way down. And unfortunately, I'm starting to see some videos of people who are propagating that information. Guys, if you're watching a video, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on politically, if it ends with, I got some.
I should have finished. Let him say that. If it ends with what? Because it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. Like, there's only two sides. There's infinite sides there, David Torres. Infinite sides. So the fact that you're pretending that there's two sides, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. You know, I've been a Democrat for the last 3 years, and I'm a lefty. I am liberal, but I don't know if there's any place for me in the Democratic Party. They're very much against progressives. They're very much against people that want to change. Look at AOC, right? She's not embraced. She's not the leader of the party. It's still the neoliberals. So, all right, finish. Well.
Election results. Nationally, everyone in a video, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on politically. If it ends with, I got some great information on some things that are going on, but I can't talk about it right now, or I can't get into it right now. Guys, that's a freaking Ponzi scheme. We're smarter than that. Okay? Voter fraud is something that's very important to me. I want our elections to be fair and honest. I really do. Believe it or not, fair elections is uber important to me. Guys, but when we cry wolf and when we allow those
Ponzi schemes. He's just kind of... Okay, so, David Torres, let's get a picture of Mr. Michael Colombe, okay? Michael Colombe. He is a cowboy hat wearing Army or Navy, Air Force liberal. He says we are not winning hearts and minds. He's been deep into the Department of Defense. He's been deep into the empire. He was in Iraq for 10 years. He was thinking about buying land in Iraq. He said he saw pallets of money that was wrapped up in saran wrap, pallets of money that we were given to corrupt Iraqis, that they had these dummy lists, and he figured out that there was dummy lists and that it actually was all going to one person. So Michael Colombe says he says that some people won't trust you until you slay a couple dragons for them. And that, you know what, that actually makes sense. Because it's hard to trust anybody these days. But if they slay a couple dragons for you, then you would say, you know what, that's all right. So here's Michael Colombe. And I'm just going to hold this up and read some of his details. So Michael Colombe, man with the cowboy hat here, he says that folks won't trust you until you slay a few dragons for them. And that's what he's going to do. He's going to slay dragons for the people. He's fiercely loyal to the people. He's fiercely loyal to the common people. He loves his community. Michael Colombe, he thinks he's got a selfless, altruistic streak in him. And you know what? In a way, he does have a pure innocence to him, a pure innocence about him. That's, what he does, he says, is that he slays dragons. He's a rescuer. He's got the selfless, altruistic streak in him. But I think I want to hear Michael Colombe to say, you know what? I don't just want the homeless people to have homes. I selfishly want $5 billion to be spent on homelessness, so for at least one moment in America, we can say that we housed all of our people. For one moment in America, we actually gave a damn about every single person in this country. For one moment in America, we actually respected their Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. Right to water, food, warmth, shelter. These are natural rights anyways. Michael Colombe, he wants to end homelessness. So I hope he is serious about getting that $5 billion. He says having one homeless person in the community is no good. It's unhealthy. That's a problem that needs to be fixed right away. Michael Colombe, he says that it's the federal government's problem because states, cities, localities, they blame it on the federal government. It's a national issue. There's homelessness in every single county, city, town, village. If one village provides some kind of housing incentive, then that creates an incentive for other homeless to seek that village out. A conservative politician from Pueblo once said she didn't want to get into the homelessness business, which is kind of true. But the U.S. government's in the military business and the Social Security business. Some of Michael Colombe's rescue missions were just pulling bodies out of the faraway, deep places, giving their loved ones something to bury in a grave. He said he has saved 15 lives. How many people have saved one life, let alone 15? He says, sir. He's kind. He said, excuse me, sir, when he was getting mad about the $1 million grant that they're not using in El Paso County. The fire marshal's not using that $1 million grant to, excuse me, sir, but we need to use that right here, right now. He talks about how there's unbridled growth in Colorado Springs. He says that the water systems and the electrical grids just can't keep up, and he wants to see solar panels on all the homes. He says there's people renting out tiny spaces, renting out rooms. Sounds like Colorado Springs is popping. Economic opportunities are abounding, but with that growth, right, there's growing pains. Colorado Springs may be getting congested, so start building up. Start building skyscrapers that reach up into the blue sky heavens and out into the counties. Build up and out. Build up and out. Michael Colombe, he says he's going to pass 3 bills in the first year he goes into Congress. He's going to pass 1 bill on guns, 1 bill on healthcare, and 1 bill on education. He liked the phrase, guide the change. Just be for change, not for change. How about guiding the change? Change is inevitable, so you got to guide the change. He's spiritual. He talks about the Tao, the Buddhist Tao, but he's not a Buddhist. He's just spiritual. He says he does something with the Pikes Peak emergency, something or another. He's a rescuer. He's a liberator. He's a rescuer down under with Bianca and Boris. No, he's a rescuer here in Colorado. He says that Robert's Rules of Order in the FFA is good. He's in favor of the Dreamers. He's pro-Dreamers, Michael Colombe. That Michael Colombe is good people. He's okay. He's smart, but he's humble enough. He says basically he takes his orders from the people. And I, pointed out that sometimes the people need guidance and direction for, the person to make that tough decision. He's got a ton of experience. He's smart, but he's got that innocence, which I think is great. Send him into Congress. Let's see what he thinks about Congress. Okay, sir. Listen, sir. We need to spend that $1 million grant for fire protection. How many people are getting all pissed off about some fire marshal not spending $1 million grant properly? Michael Colombe served in Iraq for nearly 10 years. He was thinking of buying land there. Michael Colombe saw pallets of cash money greenbacks wrapped up in saran wrap, which they were handed out to the Iraqi people, some of the Iraqi people, and he found some corruption. They had these dummy lists, and he was able to find out corruption. I think he served both in the Air Force, definitely, and I want to say Navy. There's 2 armed forces. I don't think it was the Army or the Marines. It was the Navy, I think, and the Air Force. He saved 15 lives. Michael Colombe has saved 15 lives. How many people could say they've saved anybody's life? Michael C. Colombe doesn't believe that the U.S. empire is winning hearts and minds around the world. On Ukraine, Michael C. Colombe thinks that we should do more in Ukraine. He thinks we need to implement a no-fly zone. We needed a no-fly zone in Ukraine. He says he implemented a no-fly zone over Iraq when the president had called for it in the 1990s and the 2000s. Michael C. Colombe says definitely with Ukraine, we need not only a no-fly zone, but we also need a naval blockade. And I'm for both of those things. Yes, we do need a naval blockade and a no-fly zone. The American people want a no-fly zone, you fucking weak-ass, fucking old-ass, demented. So, both of which I agree with. I suggested why not put boots on the ground. He wasn't totally on board, with that. But he did say he wanted a no-fly zone and a naval blockade. But I'm going to tell you this, America. If Putin uses chemical or nuclear or biological weapons, that's crossing a red line that, no civilized nation agrees with. That's war crimes, right? You're allowed to blow people up and shoot people, with conventional weapons, but biological weapons, you're gassing people, you're putting chemicals in the water, you're nuking people. The moment he crosses that red line, we invade Russia. If they drop a tactical nuke or a regular nuke, we wipe out Russia. And when we put American boots on the ground, all you gotta do is touch one American, motherfucker. And then we'll exterminate those Ivan the Terrible nits once and for all. Nits make life, you fucking... Nits make lice, you fucking nitwit. We need to exterminate those Ivan the Terribles if they kill any American boots on the ground that we send to Ukraine. Now, fuck you, motherfucker. We're goddamn America, motherfucker. Russia's not the exceptional nation. America's the exceptional nation. We got a Bill of Rights coming with us. We got a constitution and 3 branches of government. Palestine. On Palestine, Michael C. Colombe, he says he sees there's lots of instability. Now, he started out by saying that Israel, what Israel does to protect themselves, he admires and appreciates. He says Israel has tight defenses. So I guess he'd be in favor of the Iron Dome, the Krav Maga. But there's Hamas and Hezbollah. He also points out that they're sort of democratically elected. So but Michael Colombe, he says in terms of humanity and human rights, the Palestinians deserve better. It's apartheid. It's fucking apartheid. Israel's just stealing the land from Palestine. Bunch of land thieving motherfuckers just stealing other people's land. That's not your land, Israel. You got the land that you need. Why are you stealing other people's land, Israel? And on Yemen, Michael C. Colombe, he agreed with me that there's been 500,000 Yemenis killed so far. 500,000 Yemenis. It's chaotic. Michael C. Colombe says it's chaotic. And there's more and more groups that jump into the fray in order to increase the chaos. It's a terrorist haven. There's no government or democracy in Yemen. So whereas I can't stand that Saudi Arabia is killing so many Yemeni people, I'm not for sure. I guess he's saying that, God, who's the group? It's not Al-Shabaab. That's in Somalia. Houthis. The Houthis are in Yemen. The Al-Shabaab, most of them were small business owners. I'm not sure about the Houthis. But 500,000, I know I don't want to be a part of on the side of Saudi Arabia. That's for goddamn sure. So, that's too many. 500,000, we should put boots on the ground in Palestine, America. We need boots on the ground in Palestine, Yemen, and Ukraine. We need to be in Palestine, Yemen, and Ukraine. We're the premier empire. And if we're not prepared to defend what we've been doing for the last 50,000 decades, then let's just come home and invest in ourselves. Let's just build up 1,000-foot walls and just protect these 50 states. Until we're dedicated to doing that. And we've gone so far. We are the empire. The world recognizes us as the empire. Why would we just drop that ball? If anything, have some sort of, transitional, some sort of slow transitional. If you're going to go straight for I'm an isolationist. I don't think empire helps me. But I know that American empire is better than a Russian empire or a Chinese empire, a Brazilian empire, or a South African empire. In general, because it's my country. But also democracy and freedom. And we got a lot of good things. The Bill of Rights. We got a Bill of Rights. They don't even have a constitution in motherfucking London, in England. He wants me to look into the real story of Mark Luttrell with Josh Apple, Appel, and Chris Bartaki. Mark Luttrell was the lone survivor. There was that movie with Mark Wahlberg, but it was actually the real story of Mark Luttrell. So apparently he was involved with that Bundy thing. I think he was over there at the federal thing. And then he's with a lone survivor. He's got some lone survivor story. He's actually touching geopolitics with... In the 90s, that was the Clintons. That was Bernie Sanders voted for, the no-fly zone with Iraq in the 90s, which they say paved the road for the, 2003 invasion. And he was doing a no-fly zone then, protecting those. So David Torres' biggest failing, according to Michael Colombe, is that he just doesn't have the same intense federal government experience that Michael Colombe has. Excuse me, sir. The 14th Amendment doesn't allow anybody who rebels against the U.S. to serve as senator or House representative or president. Excuse me, sir. I did fly zones in Iraq for many years. Excuse me, sir. Michael C. Colombe was in Iraq from 1991 to 2005. 14 years at least. Michael C. Colombe's been all over the world. I think he said Greece, France, Turkey, London, England, Turkey, Bahamas, Virgin Islands, Colombia. Michael C. Colombe has been all over the world. Sometimes he's just kicking doors and rolling people, but being a rescuer, he's like a swimmer, a rescuer. He had a 11 district area in Oregon and Washington. So he's already had a 11 district area in 2 states. And to be a good representative, he said, you need to talk to the people. You need to get that valuable feedback. And that's what Doug Lamborn is not doing. He's a listener. Michael C. Colombe is a listener. He believes in town halls. He's also a talker. He also calls people back. If you call him, he'll call you back. He told me this story about some child abuse stories, but essentially his abuser told him to go pump an air with the bike pump, but that's impossible. He couldn't do it. He felt like it wasn't strong enough to do it. But actually, it was his abuser who wanted the damn tire pumped up, tried to get him to do it. Since he couldn't do it, he blamed him because he's just a controlling, authoritarian piece of shit. Michael C. Colombe, so we would assume from that, extrapolate from that he's opposed to child abuse. Michael C. Colombe remembers getting spanked in school. We mentioned Uvalde, and I said that there's corporal punishment still in Uvalde. He said he got spanked in school in Texas for chewing a piece of gum. Are you chewing a piece of gum? Here, I'm going to assault you several times because you're just a powerless kid who has parents that beat the shit out of him too. So who gives a... He's a rebellious criminal. Watch out! Are you chewing a piece of gum, mister? He knows the rules of engagement. He says his father had abandoned them, came back 10 later, was abusive and left again. I think the stepfather was the one that raised him. And I'm not for sure where he got the... I think sometimes... I don't know if he had a good man in his life. But I think what bad men do is that they give you the example of what you don't want to be. Nah, I'm not going to be like that. Make him do the thing that couldn't be done and then blame him for doing the thing that couldn't be done in the first place. Michael C. Colombe also talks about how we need to apply logic and humanity to our problems. He said that Russia is basically a gas station masquerading as a country. And he also mentioned Mogadishu. Michael C. Colombe also mentioned Mogadishu.